And I think you know what time that is. It is time for the Readiness Factor. And folks, I am your host and tour guide for this segment of the Readiness Factor, Gail Birks. I'm excited about this session today with you because I'm bringing to the forefront a topic that many of us don't like to talk about because it talks about and references our own mortality, and it's estate planning. And my guest today is a lady by the name of Chioma Deere. And I've had the pleasure of sitting in workshops with her, having her educate me, yes, me, yours truly, on the topic of estate planning. What is it all about? What does it entail? And why we need to do that. And we're going to spend some time talking about that today. But I wanted to give you just really a short introduction to Chioma because I want her to have most of this time. She is a Florida licensed attorney, and she is out of West Palm Beach, Florida. For most of us, that's just up the road. And she provides a tremendous service to help prepare and focusing on wills, trusts, estate planning, probate, and the trust administration that is all important to us. And that is something, folks, that we need to really be conscious of. She is a native of Jamaica, and Chioma graduated from Pace University Law School in New York, and then moved to Florida to make West Palm Beach her home. I am so excited she is a decorated professional in her field of work. And I'm going to let her probably tell you more about herself because I could talk all day about her, but I'd rather you hear from her. I'm going to bring to the chat room, the CMA chat room, Miss Chioma Deere. Chioma, thank you for joining me today and talking about this whole estate of this topic of estate planning. And you know what, my friend, it really is for the living.
It is. It is. And that is one of the things that I stress often. I mean, sure, the people who are creating these plans or who are putting these things together, they're living and they have to put things together. But when we say estate planning is about the living, we're
Yes.
not saying that it's just the person who's putting the documents together. We're talking about the protection of the living. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about making sure the person who's signing on the dotted line or the documents that I create is getting that peace of mind that they can take care of their families, they can take care of themselves, and their hard earned wealth is not going to go down the drain if they get sick or if they're not able to take care of themselves for one reason or the other. As an
Right.
estate planning attorney, I pride myself in ensuring that, be it a client or not, that everyone is educated about this. I find that there are a lot of myths. You know, we watch lots of TV and we see all the TikTok videos. We know all the things that are out there. But often when it comes to Florida law, which is where I practice, they don't ring true.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
making sure that people understand all of that as they're going through the process, as they're making these decisions, but just even as they're thinking about it, it is
Mm-hmm.
something that I really like to make sure people are educated about. It's super
Yeah.
important. And thank you very much, Gail, for having me on today.
Oh,
It's
my
my pleasure
pleasure.
to be here with you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I think one of the things that I personally experienced in conversations with you is that you have taken you take the fear out of estate planning. I think the one thing that we all look at is our mortality. But it is just as expensive to pass away than it is to live day to day in all the years that we walk this. And when you talk about, in this day and age, I don't know of too many families now that aren't blended families, second, third, and in some instances, fourth marriage. So what do you do in those kinds of instances? Because that can really get complicated when you've got
So
all of that mixing into the formula, the conversation.
absolutely. So let me just step back a little bit to make sure that we're all on the same page as to some basic nomenclature. So
Okay, awesome.
estate planning, yeah, so estate planning is essentially organizing your uh, finances as well as making decisions about who would be taking care of you on in other aspects of your life, not just financial. It includes healthcare. It also includes taking care of appointing guardians for minor children. It also includes taking care of appointing guardians for you should you become incapacitated. And then reviewing all those assets, making sure that the financial goals that you set out for yourself are in line with those estate planning documents. And when I say estate is literally everything that you own that is in your name. That's your estate.
Mhm.
You don't have to be dead to have an estate. Your estate is living with you right now. Everything that you own in your name is your estate. So that's why we call it estate planning. The
Mhm.
other thing that's important to know is probate avoidance. Probate avoidance. A lot of what estate planning attorneys do is to make sure that your family and you don't have to go through probate, which is the process of taking all the assets that remain in your name at the time of your death and transferring it, changing the title on all those assets to the beneficiaries or the heirs of your estate.
Right.
Now, all of that is important because a lot of the things that we're talking about is how to avoid going to court. Court is expensive, not private, protracted, takes a long time. People don't understand why it might take years and it may involve multiple litigations and things like that. But that is one of the reasons I do this stuff to not have people have to go through that, what can be heart wrenching on top of the fact that you're grieving.
Mhm.
So to your point, I take clients as they come. I work with people as they are. And yes, everything when you're talking about estate planning applies to single people, divorced people, young people,
Mhm.
right? Same-sex couples, marriages are marriages. And it also includes blended families.
Mhm.
And making sure that everyone knows that although in Florida, spouses have constitutional rights to your stuff, and it's really, you know, kind of impossible to fully disinherit your spouse without some really good planning tools. But you have to account for everyone,
Mhm.
in more or less. And so I help clients with that so that they understand that there are ways that you can go about to account for all of your people in your life, including your spouses, but then
Mhm.
also to make sure that who you want to get what and where you want things to go and when will
Mhm.
be accounted for as well. So
Awesome.
there's a
Awesome.
lot of different ways to do that. And more often than not, I do that through wills and trusts.
Okay, I've got people already starting to burn up my chat room in LinkedIn. We have guests who have joined us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and here in the CMA chat room. And I've got a question for you. What was the youngest client or person that was seeking to have their affairs in order? Who came to you?
Oh, 23. She had
Wow.
she had a burgeoning business and already had a financial advisor and told who said you have to get your estate planning together. So it was very easy for her to make that step. But just know that in Florida, when you turn 18, and most places out in this country, when you turn 18, you are no longer responsible for these children. They
Right.
don't have to tell you anything. And not only that, they can now enter into legal agreements without your permission. That's why the credit card companies line the halls of the college
Oh yeah.
dorms because these adults can make all these decisions. So 18 is, the oldest that you can make these estate planning documents. And
Mhm.
I encourage it. What I do with my clients who have college age children is I encourage them to have their children come in and set up their estate plan as well. Here are the reasons why. Consider the family who has their, mom and dad has their daughter go to college, and they get a call, say, from the side of the road that their daughter was in an accident.
Yes.
If they don't have documents in place, depending on how strict that particular hospital is, they get no information unless they are a healthcare surrogate. Because
Mm-hmm.
you have to consider everybody doesn't grow up with their parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what if that parent is an abuser? Why would you want to give them access to someone who is an adult who can choose who and who can get their healthcare information? They don't have to share healthcare information with you, and they
So
don't have
there's
to
just
share
so much,
banking information with you
yeah.
either.
So there are just so many little things that we take for granted that come
We
into
do.
play when things like this happen. And I think our young people now, as we see in the news, are coming up on so many situations now that you wouldn't think of, especially here in
Yeah.
America, but it's becoming our norm. And that's probably
Yeah.
all the more reason to make sure you have your affairs in order.
Here's the
Regardless,
other thing that a lot of people don't think about as well.
uh-huh.
What if your child was raised by a single parent and God forbid they pass away? In
Mm-hmm.
Florida, both parents get access to whatever money that person has in their estate. So even
Wow.
though that child never saw their mother for all of their life, that mother is still entitled to half of their estate, even if they've never talked to them. As long as they're
Wow.
alive, they get that money. So I would really, consider that at least at minimum, the basic foundational documents, the will, the power of attorney, and healthcare surrogate documents are in
Mm-hmm.
place for any child over 18,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're
Mm-hmm.
going to inherit stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, as an entrepreneur, that adds additional layers to the complexity of setting up an estate. It's not just the 401k and the house in retirement, but there are so many other things that come into play when it comes to being the owner of a business. And you've got people out there now who have multiple businesses. So knowing how to transfer those assets, protect those assets, is critical when it comes to having a professional like you on our personal teams. Uh, so it's wow. Tell us a little bit more about that if you don't mind.
Sure, I am happy to work with people when it comes to their financial advisors or CPAs or realtor. I love being a part of a team like that where I can jump in and advise them. For my clients, as long as they're my clients and they need to have a conversation with someone, I
Mhm.
can jump on the phone. And it's not something that I charge for. It's something that I provide so that their estate plan can remain or I should say cohesive. Like it should remain in place the way it is so that other decisions aren't being made with other advisors, other people on their team who may not
Mhm.
be aware of all the different things that might be going on in their estate planning
I
documents that
gotcha.
could be affected by those decisions.
We've got another question that's come in from our LinkedIn audience. And the question is, what happens if the person we want to leave things to or to name as the power of attorney is in another country?
Uh, well, there are tax implications for whatever you do, right? Nothing is certain other than that and death and taxes, right? So there's
Yes.
always tax implications. So part of what you should be considering is what the tax implications might be for that person. And a lot of
Mhm.
times when people are talking to their financial advisors or bankers, they will tell them, okay, if you're leaving this to someone in another country, here's the best way to put it, the best way to set it up so that it will go smoothly to the other person. And what I found is that putting things in a trust will allow it to transfer smoothly. Every country has different laws.
Mhm.
And just leaving something to someone from another country who may not have a tax ID in the United States and has to go through a protracted process to get a tax identification number from the
Wow.
IRS would probably be best served by putting that stuff in a trust and having so that upon your death, the trust will have its own tax ID number, and that's where everything stands. Now, I am not a tax attorney. There's more to it than that. I don't do the small TikTok videos. Some of the
So
lawyers actually know what they're
yeah,
doing on there, but that is
yeah,
not supposed to be taken as the full picture, because every circumstance is different. But I
yeah,
definitely want, if you're thinking about that, you definitely have to think about the tax
yeah.
implications.
And because in the region that we're in, which is so international now, the chances of having someone possibly in another country is not an exception, but could pretty much be a standard rule of engagement
Right.
when it comes to these types of situations. So yeah, thank you for that. And folks, I hope you heard that. Hint, hint, hint. Make sure you have the right professional, especially on that accountant side, more specifically
Yeah, absolutely.
CPA, not bookkeeper,
Thank you.
CPA.
I don't say bookkeepers are awesome for your business, first of all,
Yes,
but you definitely need someone who's a tax professional who can walk you through the
exactly.
ins and outs of, pros and cons of that situation. I have lots of probate cases with clients all over the world who might just happen to have someone or an asset in here in Florida that needs to be probated, but it
Yeah,
takes a lot longer when you're going through probate and it's
yeah,
way more expensive.
yeah, yeah. So ask the question, and make sure you when you're interviewing people to help you that you know for sure that this is one of their areas of specialty. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for
Sure.
that. And with that, how do you go about choosing an estate attorney? I know I met mine through my financial planner, my financial advisors. What do you recommend? Let me Google somebody real quick. What is the best way to find someone in this kind of capacity? Because this is such a sensitive area in people's lives.
It is. It is. I, I mean, Google is not a bad thing. I use Google. I'm on Google. People leave me Google reviews. But what's important is if you're looking for someone, look for someone that is as close to you as you can find. Also, go with your gut. So if you're, researching places, I would aim for people who are educating you and not educating you on laws that are 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Also work with someone who, as much as you can, has that as a dedicated area of their practice. When you're working with estate planning attorneys, some of them, and this is all types of lawyers, they just like to do that type of work, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like their main thing. Some might just be a criminal lawyer, and every once in a while they'll do a will or a trust. But if they're not keeping up to date with what's going on in estate planning in the world, in the US, in the state of Florida, you might be in the long run, it might be a disservice to you because maybe
Mhm.
it's a simple process to start. My processes aren't as simple. I actually uncover and lift up all the stones and ask you all sorts of uncomfortable questions because it helps me to figure out what's the best way to customize a plan for you.
Mhm.
You want
Mhm.
to work with someone that listens to you and understands your concerns and not just saying, well, here's a form to fill out and that's all I need from you. They're not having a conversation with you about your concerns, your family dynamics, and how things might turn out in the long run.
Mhm.
I have frank
Mhm.
and candid conversations with family members, with my clients about their family members. I might ask you if you like this person and do you trust this person and do you what would they do with $50,000 if you gave them tomorrow? Or, what if you were sick and they had bills that need to be paid? Would they be dipping into your money?
Yes.
I ask questions about, not only that, but, the dynamics between family members. You may think that you have three kids and you got to put them in line, oldest, second oldest, and youngest, and that's how it works. It doesn't work like that. You have to pick fiduciaries, people who are going to be in charge of your estate and your money and your body, who
Yeah.
are trustworthy and reliable and know how to deal with court and lawyers and, aren't going to ignore mail when it comes in the mailbox. You need people like that. And so I
Yeah.
ask the frank
Yeah.
questions because I want you to be able to tell me what you think. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I do every single time is the daughter may bring the mom in, and unless that daughter is the only daughter, and I have some kind of acknowledgement of that, that daughter is sitting in the waiting room. I am not having conversations
Yeah.
about your
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
dynamics. Just ethically, also malpractice. Like it, people shouldn't do that. And there are other
Mhm.
ways that, as an elder law attorney, I'm able to, you know, assess the situation and make sure it's done properly. But
Mhm.
you should be able to talk to your lawyer. That's a
Yes.
hugely important thing. And then be able to get responses back from them when they reach out to you. So that's
Absolutely.
one of the things that's really, really important for me. And it should be for you when you're picking a lawyer. Bottom line, go with your gut. Don't
Yeah.
just go
Yeah.
off of Google reviews.
Because for all we know, they put them in there. I've got another comment for you. It's thank you for this information. And I've always felt sort of intimidated by estate planning, and for all the reasons that we tend to stay away from the topic, but knowing the basics makes it seem less scary in a sense. I think I met you, I sat in on one of your workshops, and
You did.
it was so clear and concise to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for the intimidation button to turn on. I'm waiting for the scary button to turn on. And it never turned on. And I like, I want I want this lady here. I think that when you have people who can speak in English on a very technical topic, that removes a lot of the fear that we all carry in these types of situations. It's just so uh what is the word I'm looking for? It's personal. I think that's it. It is personal, and you don't realize how personal it is until you go through the process, folks. And you realize, oh my God, I really am vulnerable. I really was vulnerable. Ooh, no, that document I thought I had really doesn't protect me. And just the cleaning of the house of documents that have your name attached to it is just an exhale for you when you go through it. We've got another
Can I add a
comment.
couple of things to that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, one of my clients told me that just having gone through the process, and listen, I am not all touchy feely. I know it might sound that way. I am a taskmaster. I do have checklists and I do have things I need to see so that we can get this thing going right. But my client said that this was their final love letter to their family.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's not just about your mortality, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
also taking care of your family members. And like I said before, a lot of times after your passing, they're dealing with a lot of grief. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's still something, and it takes a long time for grief to happen. But right then, when you just something like that just happened, the last thing that you want is fighting. The last thing you want is uncertainty for the people that you're leaving behind. So this
Mm-hmm.
process is also that love letter, that understanding that you love them. That's why you're doing this. And
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
is air quotes, right? You pick your family. It doesn't have to be
Yes.
the ones that came up with you or anything like that. Whoever your family is that you pick, that's who you're leaving the everything for. And the
Absolutely.
other thing that's truly important is you're not in my case, I'm a regular person, and I also have a lot of corny estate planning jokes, right? So a lot of times people are
I
in
won't unfriend
my,
you. I promise you I won't unfriend you. Okay.
so I can't help myself sometimes. I don't tell very good jokes, but I have jokes just to lighten the mood. And I don't do it on purpose, to be disingenuous, but sometimes people are funny. And I mean, your
Yeah.
life, some things in your life might be funny that you don't even realize until you start going through this process. So it's
Yeah.
not something that should be intimidated. And other than if you're doing it yourself, DIY
Yeah.
and estate planning is not a good look. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
There are a
Yeah.
lot of
Um,
clerks out there with blank forms that try to help you, but they are not allowed to give you legal advice. So
yeah.
be really
Yeah.
careful about doing things on your own.
I thought the most interesting conversation that I had in this process was when we were talking about the final arrangements, and and I shared with you what I wanted, and I said, well, we have a gas grill out back.
Oh, I've heard it all. I've
That's
heard all sorts of things. Some people
so
just want to
it's
be rolled in a carpet and put somewhere. I've gotten a lot of different things.
got a gas grill out back.
I
But
can't.
I have a question for you also from our LinkedIn guest. It says, aside from what you've mentioned, and when it comes to picking an estate attorney, what are some of the things that need to be in order by the time we come to the table to your office? That's a good question.
Sure.
Thank you.
That is a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah.
Um, First thing that I try to ask is, do you have any documents in place? Do you have a will? Do you have power of attorney? Even if it was from 20 years ago. A lot of times when
Mm-hmm.
people come to me to start this process and just consult with me, I get, well, it's not a lot, or it was a long time ago, or they don't really count. And so I really have to, move away all of the myths that you're coming into the conversation with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
coming into the conversation with a very open mind about what it is you expect, just be ready to answer lots of questions, but also to ask a lot of questions. All of the ones that you think may not be smart sounding or may not be, even relevant. So, because I bring things back to the relevancy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But bring your questions, bring all the documents that you have in terms of estate planning documents, because what you have in place is important for me to know about, so I can ask you questions about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, people show up to my office and they have a will, and their will says such and such a married person, but they told me that they were not married. So I need to know what happened between then and now. Are
Yeah.
you still
Yeah.
married? Because if you're still married, then we have a different conversation. So it helps me to see all of those documents and ask the question, especially if you're changing things, why you're
Yeah.
changing things, so we can go into more about those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
open mind, all the documents that you want to bring.
Yeah. Chioma, 30 minutes goes by really, really quick.
It sure
And
does.
well, we've had some really good input from our guests on LinkedIn, as we always do. But in our
Thank you.
final moments, what can you share with us before I give people that information about being able to move their needle and keeping in touch with you and getting the conversation going? What are some of your final tips and comments for our guests today?
Sure. Sure. So, one, estate planning is for anyone above the age of 18. What really matters is, what are your concerns? What do you want to get accomplished? And how do you want to take care of yourself while you're alive, as well as what you want to have happen with your estate and your wealth that you've built
Yeah.
after you're gone and your legacy. So that's truly important. Estate planning is not for the wealthy. Wealth is relative. And what you're also wanting to make sure is that you're avoiding probate for your family. Probate is a long, drawn out process. But if you take certain steps, and especially with an attorney like me, you spend, between $4,000 to $5,000 to get everything done and done for you, and then you have an attorney that's with you. It is a huge relief. You can go on vacation with that peace of mind, knowing that everything is taken care of. So that's what I offer to my clients, to make sure that they have everything in place, and I follow them and make sure all the boxes are checked so that they don't have to worry about it.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I could truly keep this conversation going with this lady all day, but I've got some uh, information for you. So please get your pens out. And this is how you can keep that needle moving with Chioma. And Chioma, why don't you share with them your contact information? I just think they need to
Sure.
hear that.
Let me see. Okay. So I just switched to a QR code so that you can scan and make a consultation appointment with me, and my office will contact you about it. The consultation is usually explained in detail by my office, but if you go to my website, it can give you more information about me, including a free webinar that you can watch to learn more about the way that I help clients and their families with their estate planning. Although I mentioned a range of price, it's actually way more than that. There's a lot, way more options than that. There's a lot of different things that we can do to make sure that your family's protected. And it doesn't have to be, the most, elaborate plan out there. It really is based on what you want to accomplish and what you have in your estate. So feel free to reach out to me. You can call the office, you can check out the website, or you can try to make an appointment now. I am only practicing in Florida. So if you're a Florida resident, I welcome you. If you just want to find out more about estate planning, I don't mind doing that as well. And I have a robust um, referral partners in other states that I can probably connect you with as well. So I want to be a resource for you to give you more information. And my website and my consultation might be a good way to do that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And you see our information at the bottom for CMA, because you know what we do. We definitely help you move
Exactly.
that needle. And folks, before I close out, I want to let you know that we are back in the business of sharing our toolboxes with you. And we've got an event coming up in June. On June 19th and 20th, we're going to be doing strategic expeditions, a mapping process for strategic and sustainable success. And then in June, we're going to be bringing you one of the curriculums of our Lean Six Sigma family in looking at elevating organizational excellence through Kaizens, and that's going to be held in August. We are so appreciative that you join us every single month. And next month is going to be just as robust as this month has been. Chioma Deere, thank you so much for joining me today. You have given us some sweets that are, that long lasting candy that just will not shrink, go away, but just keeps us wanting for more. Thank you so much. And
Thank
ladies
you
and
very much for
gentlemen,
having me.
yes, yes, yes. This has been the Readiness Factor. And I am your host, Gail Birks. And I look forward to talking with you out loud next month, the second Thursday at 2 p.m., when we will be talking about mental health. Take care.